KYOT Coyote.
Tacticool, an ambitious custom animation mod by Blaster O Remix. Custom animations are one of the most difficult and time-consuming features in a video game. A lot of skill involved. Tacticool is a must-download for all Halo 3 ODST fans, as these custom animations bring a profound visual to the game. There are custom reload animations, melee, and idle animations to include sensible weapon-wielding placement on screen. I want to first analyze the angle of the weapons being held, as you can see on screen right now. Take a look at how this SOCOM automag is being held. The weapon is slightly canted to the left. For those of us trained in firearms, especially in shoot, move, and communicate scenarios, many of us have a natural tendency to hold the weapon slightly tilted in the opposite direction of our dominant hand. This video shows a friend of mine who is a firearms instructor in South Central Texas, and with him is an advanced level participant. I asked him why we have a natural tendency to hold our firearms canted, especially when being mobile. He described it takes more muscles in our hands and arms to try holding our firearms directly at 90 degrees. It's beneficial for longer ranged weapons to be as leveled as possible. That's why with these rifles you see them extending their non-firing hand towards the front end of the handguard. This allows for more control over the rifle, more control over consecutive shots towards a target, and for more control if someone is behind a wall and tries to grab your weapon. You at least have stronger leverage. But for shorter, effective ranged firearms like a pistol, a natural and more comfortable grip for the one wielding the weapon is more important, especially for a smooth trigger squeeze. Therefore, it's common to see a natural tilt to the weapon. The next thing to consider is the momentum one has when they wield a firearm while moving. A pistol with a full magazine can weigh around 2.5 pounds or around 40 ounces. Then consider larger weapons with heavier ammunition. There's going to be a natural sway to the weapon. And for this Halo 3 ODST mod, Tacticool, with its slightly tilted weapon on screen, the momentum seems a little more accentuated than in retail. Things feel heavier and beefier in this mod. Let's dive into that a little more, and I do want to thank Instructor Lespina for allowing me to use his videos in this video. You can check out his channel that I'll link in the description of this video. And I know Halloween is on the horizon as of the making of this video, but Lespina currently has 666 views, so how about giving him a watch and becoming 667, the neighbor of the beast. Okay, so we can see the difference from the retail version to Blaster O Remix's Tacticool mod with the weapon in its canted position on screen and the purpose behind it. But there are various reload animations that depend if you dispense an entire magazine or if you're conducting a tactical reload, firing only a few rounds and reloading with a round still in the chamber. I like to look at one of these custom reload animations in detail for the automag. You can notice in slow motion here, after I fire 12 rounds and reload, there is a subtle correction when inserting the new magazine. Right here. This is of course intentional from the animator Blaster O Remix. The ODST realigns the magazine before inserting it and sending the slide forward. This small course correction is a subtle detail, but a very humanistic one. This is not a machine reloading a weapon, but rather a trained individual correcting a small error. And with this humanistic approach comes some flair, some showboating, and some ego. The ODSTs will have some extra fun with some of these reloads, especially with the automag, which is pretty neat when you think about it. The automag is a firearm the ODSTs are extremely fond of, so tossing around the magazine, spinning the automag around with their finger, it makes sense that they understand the weight of the weapon loaded and unloaded, so they may be more seemingly frenetic, with some egocentric impulses, which are human characteristics, and some of you may know where I'm going with this. In the retail version of Halo 3 ODST, there is only one reload animation for the automag, no matter if you empty an entire magazine or not. There is no alternate rousing reload animation, no change up in the process. In fact, there's not even a moment where the ODST sends the slide forward after firing an entire magazine. The animation is rather straightforward, no nonsense, consistently the same. It gets the point across that you are reloading, and the weapon is held at nearly 90 degrees when aiming downrange. Very machine-like. Dare I say, rather too similar to a Spartan. When you play as the Master Chief, the rigid animations make sense for such a super soldier Spartan. I would not suspect a genetically and mentally enhanced single fighting force such as the Master Chief to have a motley of reload tendencies if he could help it. With genetically enhanced muscles, I could imagine a fictional character like a Spartan wouldn't care to have their weapon tilted slightly to the side for more comfort, like we saw earlier, especially with a Magnum. Although, that's for a Spartan, not an ODST. So part of the reason I really like this mod specifically for Halo 3 ODST is because it builds believability that the ODST is not a Spartan. So I should not see the same animations that I do when playing as the Master Chief in Halo 3, when I am instead playing as a more human ODST. When firing the automag, you can notice a sudden jolt of a screen shake effect after each shot. This effect helps me believe that there is a slight delineation of the firearm from the ODST. The ODST is not retaining perfect sight picture immediately after every shot. Going back in time to the retail version, there is a screen shake effect, but it is negligible. It feels too much like the bullets are coming out of your eyeballs. I get that this could be perceived as the automag and the ODST are one and the same, but I like Blaster O Remix's change up here. Pun definitely intended. I also like the attention to detail in the moving parts of the firearms, such as this reload animation includes the ODST actuating the charging handle to then send the bolt forward. Speaking of the charging handle, this mod also includes a reciprocating charging handle for the assault rifle. This was seen in earlier test builds of Halo 3, but was eventually made non-reciprocating upon release. It's really cool to see it in this mod though. It further makes the weapons feel as though they are assembled with various parts, as they should be. And here's a full reload for the battle rifle, in slow motion, of course. And here's a battle rifle tactical reload. Bam, just like that. As mentioned, this mod has idle custom animations for every weapon. So we'll start going through the weapons reload, plasma cooldown, and idle animations. Going buck wild right off the start with the shotgun here, you can see the initial shell is loaded into the ejection port, and the rest of the shells are loaded in on the top loading port. I like this variation of a reload. And here's what it looks like if you load less than 6 shells. Say that 6 times fast. Idle shotgun animation. Before we get too far, let's go back to the automag. Nice. Suppressed SMG. I love this interaction with the extended stock. It's a new way of looking at the SMG. A full magazine reload. This is a unique angle of cocking the charging handle. I like this reload preference. You get more leverage pulling the charging handle downward than you do if you were to reach over the top and rack the charging handle. And here's a tactical reload. The Spartan laser has a similar idle animation from retail, but there's a little more inspecting going on. The sniper rifle. Click, 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 adjust for elevation.
Headshot! That did it! Shoot and scoot!
The animation makes the sniper rifle feel true to its weight, feels heavier.
More trouble!
Like in other Halo games, in this mod, the test button on the Spanker rocket launcher is actually pushed, unlike in retail. The Magnum has been added into this mod just like the battle rifle, and I really like the glow of the rear sights. Given the low lighting in Halo 3 ODST, it just looks right. Now you'll notice when zooming in with the Magnum, once you fire, you will automatically be forced to zoom out. This differentiates the Magnum from the Automag and makes the ODST and the Automag feel more in sync with one another, although the Magnum is powerful. However, due to the force zoom out, the Magnum is certainly not a viable weapon for medium-long range targets. Therefore, you'd find more use for the Automag instead, that can effectively and consistently hit foes at medium range. It's for those close encounters where the Magnum goes to work. Blaster O Remix even treated both the Magnum and the Automag to different idle animations. And here's a tactical reload for the Magnum. And then a full magazine reload. Pretty straightforward. Not as much visual flair like with the Automag, which is another indicator that the ODSTs are much more attached to the Automag. Let's just get the grenade arc throw out of the way. This mod lessens the arc, so it's more predictable where your grenades are landing.
Hostiles lower level! Clear them out!
And here is the final Unity weapon we will check out its animations for in this video, the assault rifle. I unload a nearly half-empty magazine. There is already a round in the chamber, so it's a closed bolt. And then I unload an entire magazine, and the animation is send the bolt forward. And we've got the awesome melee strike, similar to Halo Combat Evolved. Now let's get more alien. Also similar to Halo Combat Evolved is the melee strike for the Needler. There are two custom melee animations for the Needler. One uses more of the front end of the weapon, and the other uses the full top half of the Needler to stab the adversary. Now, I can't determine if Blaster O Remix altered all of the weapon statistics in this mod, but the Needler is more enjoyable to use in this mod, Tacticool. A big proponent to that are the neat melee animations, but it also comes down to the fact that Blaster O Remix gave the Needler back its dignity with including longer needles protruding from the top of the weapon. I never cared for the Needler's needle design starting in Halo 3 and going into Halo 3 ODST. The needles appeared too small and dinky. We can't have that, folks. What's interesting, I've heard people that know of Halo but may not be familiar with the weapons, they recall the Needler. And I think if we're going to have a weapon that is very memorable, it should look more violent, like a ferocious pink hedgehog. Nice little hedgehog. Blaster O Remix put the Spiker's blades to work. The animation is a stabbing motion with the front bayonets, and the additional melee is a slicing motion. Really good usage of the blades, and the reload, straightforward. And for the Mauler, there are two separate animations for the Mauler, both of which use the blade. You want a bigger blade? These two animations here in this mod use the blade as more of an upward slice at an angle, as opposed to retail. With the plasma pistol idle animation here, notice the heat meter hologram. It briefly pulsates when opening up the hatch. The left hand has a much better animation than in retail when the plasma pistol has overheated. It actually communicates that the weapon is hot. In retail, it looks as though Bungie didn't know what to do with the left hand. For a weapon that's expelling all that heat, I wouldn't be keeping my hand that close. The same thing goes for the Brute Plasma Rifle in retail. The weapon is hot, but the left hand doesn't do much separating from the weapon's heat. In Tacticool, the weapon is lifted up and off to the side. The left hand separates at a more considerable distance from the heat coming out of the weapon, and there's a quick animation with the fingers and hand. This animation better communicates to me that this weapon is hotter than an Arizona hot dog, wrapped up in jalapenos left on the hot grill. For the Fuel Rod Cannon's idle animation, the ODST gives it a little wiggle. I like it when separate pieces are interacted with. For the Covenant Carbine, this is a very fun one when you have to reload an entire pod. It's straightforward if you're just reloading halfway through a pod, but if you're reloading from empty, the ODST throws the pod up and catches it in midair. Because, you know, they're an ODST, they're familiar with pods, they do what they want. Standing idly by with the beam rifle, you'll open up the hatch as if it's a coffee maker. Then you'll give the wheel a spin. And if you overheat the beam rifle, the animation is properly embellished. With the gravity hammer, you'll see that the ODST gives it a thorough inspection at the top. Probably wondering how the heck this thing works. Where you see elite bodies, look around for an energy sword, because Blaster O Remix included the energy sword and it has this awesome first-person view. This stance makes a lot more sense to me than the sword pointing upward like we see in Halo 3. And it also has one of the coolest animations I have ever seen in a Halo game. Blaster O Remix did not just decide to include the energy sword and stop there. We get to enjoy the energy sword in its full custom animated glory, and the energy running down the blades looks awesome. I'm really happy with how this mod turned out. Overall, it illustrates the attitude of the ODSTs, more with how they handle weapons they are closely associated with. It strays further away from the more pristine, systematic reload animations we see with Spartans. You can enjoy this mod by clicking on the link in the description of this video below. Thank you very much for watching, and
have yourself a very happy Halloween.